This is the Left in the Forgotten Borough podcast. I'm Andrew Savage.
I'm Nancy Richards. We're in a bit of a rush today.
We are, but you're in the Sunshine State of Florida.
I am in Florida. I'm in the red state of Florida to this week. So I just got out of the pool, as you can see.
Oh, that's wonderful. I just came back from grocery shopping and I feel gross because it's so humid
Oh,
out.
I,
Um,
I need to shower, so I feel gross too, but in a good
yeah,
way. But in a good way.
yeah, and
Um,
somebody else who should absolutely feel gross is Nicole Malliotakis, but she won't. And the reason why she won't is because she is who she is and she has no shame.
she does. Everything just slides off her because she's so graceful. It's just slip.
Yeah,
It's just slip.
and our listeners might be wondering, specifically what are we talking about? Because there's so much there to feel gross about if you have her record. But this week, we got notice that Congressmember Jim Jordan is coming to Staten Island next week. And for our listeners who may not know who Jim Jordan is, Jim Jordan played a really outsized role in the House during the first Trump administration. So he was oftentimes the one running interference for Trump on the impeachment committees in those hearings that were related to the impeachment committee. And, as our friend Mike DeSilla said, he's a guy who also lost his suit jacket 20 years ago.
Mm,
Because he never appears in a
never
suit
wears
jacket.
one.
And so he's coming to Staten Island next week to fundraise with Nicole Malliotakis. And, in addition to all the things we just said about Jim Jordan and just his running interference for Trump in the impeachment sagas, both impeachments actually, uh, Jim Jordan in his pre-Congress life, he's a congressman from Ohio, Republican, and he was a wrestling coach at Ohio State University. And students at Ohio State University were being sexually abused by one of the physicians that was in charge of, working with the team. And it was alleged, and it's been reported that many of those students reported directly to Jim Jordan what was going on, and he just simply turned the other cheek. He
Mm.
ignored it.
Yes. And also he's an election denier. So him and Nicole are in the same camp, which is, fitting why he's coming to support her. Um, I'm not surprised. Um, they're both avid Trump supporters and they back the president. And so they're going to back each other and he's going to help her fundraise. So, not surprised. And we're making a big deal about this because we are highlighting the type of people that she surrounds herself with.
Well,
And
yeah, absolutely. And not only that, but Nicole Malliotakis on a daily basis, for as long as I could remember, has fear-mongered about crime and public safety. And yet here she is with horrific crimes taking place towards students at the college setting, and somebody who was in a position to potentially report it and to stop it chose not to do so. And
blind eye.
yeah,
And also has, kind of pulled this under the rug. Like, like sometimes I find that in politics, if we just ignore it, it goes away kind of thing. If we don't talk about it, we don't talk about Bruno. So and that seems to be the camp. And if it works for your side, then it's okay.
yeah.
So Jim Jordan is I don't know, would you still consider him a heavy hitter, in the Republican Party?
I don't know. I think, not lately, but he was at one time during the
During the
Biden.
first administration, he seemed
Yeah.
to be everywhere.
And in the
So I haven't heard
Biden,
much of him this time.
yeah, in the Biden years, actually, when they booted Kevin McCarthy as the speaker, he was floated as a potential replacement. And of course, it failed on the first ballot.
Hmm.
So there's that. But also, if our listeners want more details about the scandal that we're talking about, it is the subject of a documentary called Surviving Ohio State. It's on HBO Max. I watched it a while back. It was really illuminating. It was really informative. And it shows you the kinds of people that Nicole Malliotakis and the company that she keeps and the people who she relies on to raise money. And again, she is somebody who's been for the last 15 years of elected office, fear mongering about crime, fear mongering about public safety. And yet here she is raising money with somebody who was negligent about horrific crimes happening right under their nose. And this comes on the heels of her running interference for Trump, who's been in the Epstein files. And she couldn't even say that Ghislaine Maxwell should not have clemency.
Was
Not
that the comment when she had to go to the dentist?
physician's office for this
Yeah, the
physician's
physician.
office.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has to go to the physician. She has to find her spine because she's never had one.
Well, the thing about that that I think we're drawing attention to this is because as you said, Nicole is someone who touts this, I care about crime, I care about kids, I care about education, I care, I care, I care. But when people she knows and are in her camp commit these, have commit these crimes or have these allegations, she turns a blind eye. And in politics, I see that a lot. And we need to call attention to it, whatever party it is, whether it's the left
Um,
or the right. And that's happening on the left as well, which we're going to
but
talk about as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
But
and
the fact that she's having this person come and fundraise for her shows her what, the type of candidate she is. She's not authentic, and this is all about just raising money. It's not about what does she really stand for? She stands about getting reelected, and that's it.
that's all
That
she.
that's her
That's
that,
it.
that's
Power.
it. That's what she
That,
stands for. And if you're okay with that, then more, what can I say?
well, absolutely. And I think, for the people of Staten Island and South Brooklyn who are her constituents, statistically, there are people here who have been victims of abuse and who have been victims of crime and particularly sexual violence. And for the folks who are lucky enough to get justice, because oftentimes in these cases, people don't report these things. For the people who are lucky enough to get justice, it was because somebody believed you. It was because somebody helped you. It was because somebody heard you. And Jim Jordan did not hear any of the people who were abused under his charge. And in fact, he swept it under the rug. And so Nicole Malliotakis continues to be a disgrace to the people she represents. She is a not fit for the office she holds. And she traffics with some of the worst among us to keep herself in power and to raise money.
Yes. So think about that when you're writing your checks on who you're going to support. There's a check you can write to, Mike DeSillis. He's running. Pretty straightforward. He's for what he stands for, and he's backed it with his occupations in the past. Um, so yeah, I'm just, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised Nicole is choosing, Jim Jordan to come fundraise with her. And they're going to ignore all these allegations. So I'm wondering if the Advance is going to make note of that. I mean, the press that will be allowed to be there and, talk to them. I wonder if they're going to confront them on that. Probably not, my
Well, I
guess.
don't know. I don't know if press is even allowed. I was actually um,
Oh, that's
looking.
true, because it's a free
Yeah.
country, right? Well, not
Well,
nearly.
yeah. And I'm just looking at I was looking at the flyer for the event a few days ago, and here it is. So, $100 as a guest,
Okay.
$500 as a host committee, $1,000 VIP reception. Um, all of this just to hang with, somebody who protects pedophiles and rapists of children. And so, really, this is a clear choice between, somebody like Mike DeSillis, who has uh, always been committed to public service and who has the right values and will actually fight and stand up for democracy. Or are you going to vote for somebody who protects abusers? And Nicole has protected multiple abusers at this point. Donald
Yes.
Trump, Jim Jordan, Ghislaine Maxwell. So this is a very clear choice here in November, and we absolutely have to vote for Mike DeCillis, and we have to show support for Mike DeCillis from now until
And not to
November.
mention her voting record and how it's actually hurt. She claims that the big beautiful bill helps working class people in this city. I don't s- I have not benefited from that. And I'm in some categories that she claims has helped, like in regards to seniors, like nothing. I don't see any of her programs that have actually made any real dent in my life as being better. So she's this big, beautiful bill. It cuts Medicare, it cuts aid, and so therefore, and she packages it as something that it's not. And I'm glad that people are standing in front of her office, um, confronting her lies. And I really, really hope in November that we vote her out.
Yeah.
We vote her out. And Mike's a great candidate, and
Mhm.
I think people should really have a listen to him. And I hope that he gets the access to deliver his message.
I
So,
hope so too. And well, and we told them this last time he was on, he has a standing invitation anytime he wants to come on, just
mhm.
to make a pitch or to, talk about issues or to draw the contrast between him and Nicole for the general election. He is more than welcome to do that. And so I think we have to do that. But that's not the only local
Yeah,
rump
I was gonna say, how
happening.
long I
Yeah.
want to talk about him and much like let's talk about Vito. He's very upset over this map.
Yeah.
Now,
Borough President Vino Fossella. Vino Fossella.
he 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 I posted on someone's page. I was like, he really needs something to do. I was like, maybe he should go back to fighting those parking spots, which is probably the only thing I think I might have been on board with. But this map, I looked at this map. He's absolutely right. There are groups that are not on this map, but the it's a very easy target to for someone to get
Oh,
mad at.
absolutely. It's rage bait. Totally.
Yeah, it totally is. And so us talking about it, I, I don't see it as an issue. There are so many groups on there that you could include. Um, I agree with that, but it definitely doesn't deserve the rage that it does.
No, and you know what the thing is I think you could maybe, if you were interested in perhaps knowing what the truth is about it, you could, sit in maybe a ninth grade global history class when they say this is a historical map, this is a more current map. Because here I looked at the map and it was current immigrant enclaves. When we talk about Little Italy, that's a tourist trap now.
Yeah, it's
That's not an immigrant enclave for Italian immigrants anymore.
right.
And
But
so,
the Bronx, Arthur
yeah,
Avenue could possibly still considered, that.
yeah, because
Um,
I was like,
Little Sri
yeah,
Lanka, there's a large Sri Lankan population on Staten Island that was missing as well. There is, the Gaelic Park up in the Bronx in the north. That's a very immigrant group as well. There are some missing groups, I'll granted that. But
but
all right,
I interpreted it to mean like these were current, immigrant enclaves. Like, so for example, I was at a friend of ours yesterday in Brooklyn, in Greenpoint, and it's a very Polish area. And so,
mhm.
and you see evidence of that everywhere. People are speaking Polish. The businesses are written in both English and Polish, the signs. And so that was on the map. And so I think, when we're talking about Irish and Italian immigrants, I don't see those large influx. If this were
Well,
a
up in the Bronx, there is a large Irish. It's Little Ireland up there. In fact, whether you're up in Woodlawn, Woodlawn is known as like Little Ireland, and
but
there
recent
is a
like immigrants, like
oh
recent.
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
and you'll find more Irish accents up there than you will anyplace else. And also there's some other parts of the city as well, but I don't know who made the map. I don't know who was advised. But if I was Vito Fossella and there were groups that were omitted before I would make a public outrage, um, I would make a phone call and, you know,
Yeah. Well, maybe.
and kind of get some more questions. And this is just an easy way to get pissed off at the mayor.
Well, it is. And then not only that, and if I was also Vito Fossella, I would maybe check my anger at the door because he did get some of his facts confused in the post. He said, not to mention the Puerto Ricans in certain areas. And well, Puerto Ricans are Americans, sir.
Yeah,
They are Americans. They are not we should not count them as immigrant groups. They are American citizens. They've been American citizens since 1898. They are Americans. And I know that your president, Donald Trump, may not view them that way, hence why he went to Puerto Rico during Hurricane Maria and threw paper towels at them rather than actually help them. But they are American citizens. And so before you put out rage bait and before uh, you know, another thing was he was like, oh, he was railing against ignorance after saying Puerto Ricans are immigrants. He was railing against ignorance, which because meanwhile his post was just, the epitome of ignorance, calling American citizens and lumping them in with immigrants. And so I think that I think that Vito Fossella, this is what he does. He crawls out from under his rock to rage at something. And it's also worthy of note. A lot of the Republican Party does not like, here on Staten Island, does not like Vito Fossella. The voters might, but a lot of Republicans don't. And I know that just from having interacted with many of them. And because he has a sense of entitlement, he tried to run his son for a city council seat that he has zero qualifications for, uh,
right.
and just trafficking on the family name. This is a guy who is also, big on family values. And when he says he's big on family values, you do have to ask which family, Vito.
Right.
Because you have two of them.
Well,
Because you have two of them. And so he is so full of shit. He is such a bloviator. He just comes out from under his rock whenever he wants to get other people
whenever
riled
it's
up.
convenient
Yeah.
and and has his moments.
Mhm.
Um well, you know, look, I I saw that map and I was like, ooh, they missed the boat on on a few groups. And they did. And I would, if I was omitted, I would definitely be upset over it. Um, but to be honest, um could there have been changes? Who made the map? And I haven't had seen a response from the mayor's office on this. So the only thing I've seen is a post article. And when I see a post article, I'm looking for something else from the other side because it's usually one-sided. And
Well,
I
it's
haven't seen
yeah.
any response from the other side.
Well,
So
it's
I
actually
don't know.
because you asked who made the map. It was the mayor's um, Office of International Affairs, and so
Right, but
that's
I haven't
who
seen a
made it.
comment from
Yeah.
them at all. I haven't seen
Yeah.
a response in regards to them saying, well, we included these groups because, and these groups are not in it because, um, and maybe that warrants a response in regards to how the map was. But I think the right thing for the mayor's office to do is because the problem with making a map like this, regardless, is when you do omit people either by error or by, being deliberate. Um,
Well,
some
it
people,
breeds
they
resentment.
just need to be heard. They need to be
Breed,
heard.
it
But
breeds resentment. It does.
it does.
Uh,
But I don't see Vito reaching out and making the corrections of this map. I see him using this as you said, as rage bait. And
yeah.
it's going to be very easy to do this.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the post now just to kind of remind myself what people were saying about it. Not only, should I say Vito Fosella's sense of entitlement not only extended to his son in the last 2025 city council election, but now evidently it extends to his wife, who was thinking about making a run
The
for borough.
first one.
The
Yeah.
the legitimate one. And
Yeah.
then, like she's thinking of running for borough president
I
after
heard
his
that.
term limited out. Again, with zero qualifications other
Well, you
than
know what?
trafficking
Look,
the family
she
name.
wants to run. Fine, let her run. She has every right to.
Oh, I
Um,
know. Well, she's also, but again, I'm just saying this as a way to kind of encompass that this is a sense of entitlement, and this kind of thing is fodder to increase and to amplify their brand as a
yeah, true.
family, I suppose. And so that's why I bring that up just as a kind of connecting thread here. And so And again, I interpreted the map as like a more current thing. Like if this were a map of 1920s immigration and you wanted to include Irish and Italian and this and that would be fine.
No, but I'm telling
Yeah.
you, present day, the Irish are very much present up in the north, up in Woodlawn. That is definitely an area, and I don't really, the Jewish population in Borough Park. Yeah, there's definitely you can't talk about Brooklyn without talking about, the Jewish population. But the criteria is, they were talking about not religious groups, they were talking about like countries. So, you know, I think the right thing for the mayor's office to do is a response into how this map was created. Not that it's going to matter to the hotheads from from Vito's office, but I think for other people of the city, do that and fine. So, um, once again, something, light news day, and he needs to, you know, I told him to go back to the bus situation because that actually is an issue. They need parking
Well,
on Victory Boulevard. And it
well,
looks
that's
like it's still happening. Like they're
well, I think there's some movement there, but I also, it's not as, again, that is not as good. That's kind of it's a very important local issue, but it's not one that will serve his brand as much as this does. And so I
no.
think that's why he will continue to harp on not just this, but things like this in the future.
But if
Um,
he does get the parking restored for Victory Boulevard, I know a lot of people who were there on that for that little protest who were not supporters of Vito Fossella and politically not at all on his side. But it's an issue that means something to them because it impacts them over there. And you're very close to that area. You know how hard it is to park over there. Um, I think as a borough president, that'd be a good way of kind of doing a nonpartisan act as opposed to just, shooting from the hip, the right side of your hip. Um, so I think you should go back to the bus, the
yeah,
parking spots.
and also, there's been rumblings that, he may want to run for Congress again. He was our congressman in the
Mm.
1990s. And so there's been rumblings of that too. And I think, there may be some rumblings of him and Nicole Malliotakis maybe wanting to switch positions when he's term limited. She may want to run for borough president. He may want to run for the House. And so I think this is
Not
all,
surprised. Look,
yeah.
she's always looking to keep her job, keep some kind of job. So what's next for her? She's made a career. When they talk about, draining the swamp, Nicole is someone who does not want to leave political office because what would she do if she didn't have an elected job?
Well, yeah, and she doesn't have the charisma for any kind of media, that's for sure. And
Well,
so I think this is perfectly suited to her skill sets and Vito's as well, just putting rage bait out there and, letting the masses sort of eat it all up, and then we get the votes out of it around election time.
Well, he did something when he wasn't broke in between that loss of time. He did something. Whereas with Nicole, she's always had an elected office. So what would she do if she didn't have an elected office? So just think about this. Those of people who are like, well, Nicole's only priority is keeping herself elected. It has nothing to do with what she stands for. The only thing she stands for is staying elected. And I'm sorry, when you do things like that, um, you make bad choices, and they're not usually for what the constituents need. So just
And
think about
and
that.
and Vito has similar interests for himself and also his family. He wants to create a dynasty in Staten Island and throughout, the political landscape here in New York City. He wants that dynasty, and it's important. It's important, and it's incumbent upon voters that we all see through that, and we don't allow this kind of rage bait to dictate dictate how we vote and to really see what's going on here. And the fact is that, Vito Fossella is all but useless for the most part as an elected official.
Yes.
And so is Nicole Malliotakis. And so we have to really just get on that. And one of the things that I'm really happy about, I'm really proud this week to be a Democrat, is that we do hold our electeds and our candidates to very high standards. And of course, I'm switching gears here, to talk about the Graham Plattner situation in Maine. So, Graham Plattner's campaign has been hit with all sorts of allegations throughout the whole process. He's had a Nazi tattoo that he's had to explain and he had to cover up. There was some sexting with women who were not his wife.
Mhm.
There were some questionable behavior with women that, may or may not have involved consent. And now
There
we
was a
have,
rape allegation.
yes, this is a sexual assault allegation. And, this is what we decided was the straw that broke the camel's back for us with him. Because for a
Did,
while we were just kind of just like ready to hold our nose and vote for people
well,
who were saying
did you watch his press con did you watch his uh
the video.
video he made? It was pretty long. I
I
watched it. I was sitting
did.
here and it was on television. And first of all, he says that all of this stuff is not true. So he's denying these allegations. But second of all, the thing that struck me is the reason why he said he was stepping down was not because of um, admission of guilt. He said because the powers that be in the party were going to be taking away his abilities to run, like fundraise and access to voter rolls and things like that. And I think about that, even like when I think about early on in our primary with Mike in regards to, party leadership and what they do for a candidate and how it impacts them. And with Graham, when the party leadership started not supporting him anymore because of all the things that have been alleged about him, he's like, I can't run, because I won't be able to. Um, I wish the party would put forth candidates and vet them before,
Yes,
regardless.
yes.
I understand that this man had a real kind of surgence. They tried to put someone forward, and just saw that they put the governor they were going
Janet
to,
Mills. Janet
and
Mills, yeah. Well,
saw that she just didn't have the popularity. He really did have some sort of movement, which also, regardless of what side of the political fence you're on, people follow some interesting people with past or, um, and I think that's an interesting thing about our country is who we accept and not accept to be our elected officials.
well, I
Um,
think, yeah, well, I think the way that Democrats handle this kind of thing, I think is revealing just of who we are as a party, but the way that the Republicans handle this kind of thing is
well, the
also
Republicans
revealing
totally ignore it,
they don't
and we
care.
eventually say, okay, we can't have this guy.
Yeah.
I wish
And
they do
so,
it sooner, but
yeah.
they,
And, just I think, first of all, as it relates to his video, I don't buy, oh, that the party establishment is not letting me do this. No, this is you. You shouldn't, I'll talk about why I think the party establishment is at fault here in just a moment, but I also think for him, you had all of these skeletons and you knew you had all these skeletons and you continued the hubris it takes to continue to run a campaign of such consequence when you have all of these things that could be weaponized against you by opposition research and by Susan Collins' campaign and by super PACs. The hubris that takes is just
yeah,
insane.
I see your point.
Yeah, but also when it comes to the party establishment, the way that I think that they're at fault here is uh, I think Graham Plattner's candidacy was a response and a negative response to the influence of Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand and the DSCC, propping up 80-year-old Janet Mills
Yeah,
to run for this seat. I mean, were they alive during 2024? I mean, this is exactly what we wanted to avoid.
yeah,
And Janet Mills, from what I hear, has been a fine governor, fine, but she's too old, and
right.
she's not meeting the moment. And so
It's a good
instead
term,
of
not meeting the moment.
yeah. And instead of just letting a campaign, this is what we said about the race here in Staten Island for CD11, instead of just letting a primary play out and letting viable candidates from wherever jump in, the party has to put its thumb on the scale for this one and for that one and monkey the process up. And so it's going so naturally, people are going to be angry about that, and they're going to go to a more insurgent sort of candidate. And so I think there's plenty of blame to go around. And just for our listeners, there's a couple of, details. So technically, he has to be withdrawn from the ballot
He said he
by
was going to
Monday.
withdraw his paperwork. Yeah.
By
He said
Monday,
that.
that's the deadline. Because if he didn't do it by then, we were stuck with him until
Well,
November.
verbally, he said he was
Yeah,
putting that paperwork in. And then there's
yeah.
a few people that are waiting in the wings, and one of them is a local celebrity. I don't know if he's a local celebrity.
Dr. McDreamy, Patrick Dempsey, I heard.
Patrick, like the real Patrick Dempsey.
Yes, Patrick Dempsey, I heard.
Oh, I didn't hear that one.
Yeah, and
No,
I heard Martha
who's the guy
Stewart
owned a
too.
bar or something like that? He was like a popular bar owner.
Oh, he was the brewery owner.
Yes,
I know who
brewery. Yes. Okay.
you're talking about. I'm just not thinking of his name. But I've heard
Yeah.
the big names, the celebrity names I've heard were Patrick Dempsey because he lives in Maine or he has a home in Maine, and then Martha Stewart. That's who I heard.
Martha Stewart's too old.
She is too
She
old.
can't do that. She can't run. First
Although
of
I
all,
love
is she a
Martha Stewart.
felon? I mean, she can't. Oh, maybe she can run.
It's
We
been a
do have a
while.
felon in the office, so
It's been a while. Listen, if there's a billionaire felon, I would support it's her. And
yeah,
so yeah, so
everything would be, very nice if she ran.
yeah.
So
The state would be, well, the state is already a beautiful state, but I mean,
yeah,
everything would be just beautified all the time. You'd have this like plant arch come as you come into the state with flowers and
yes.
all kinds of stuff. But there's a couple of dates.
Like
So
she would make dessert out of the state flower and the state fruit, and we
you will have an excellent
could make a
lobster
pie.
dish. You will have an excellent lobster dish from Martha Stewart if she runs. But no, there's the July 13th date that we mentioned before, but also the party, I think, in Maine last night, actually, they voted to hold a convention to pick the replacement. That there were a few options. They could have done this convention or they could have essentially done a caucus, redo the primary essentially. And so, but the problem that they had is time. And so
Yeah.
they have to get all this resolved by July 27.
Well, they
And
need to do the
so,
quickest way that
and that's the
incorporates
party.
the most people, and then they'll
Yeah,
do
that's
that and
the
let people vote.
the party
Yeah.
convention was the way that they did it. And the daily podcast from the New York Times really made a good point. They said this whole thing, is like a 2024 redux of Biden dropping out and, Harris entering at the last second. And, how are we going to decide? And one of the things that was really important to Maine voters was that there actually be a process, because when it came to Kamala Harris taking on the top of the ticket from Joe Biden, a lot of people felt, well, she was just sort of coronated, and that was it. And so it was important that they did that. Now, some of the candidates are running. Troy Jackson. He is the former Maine Senate president. He's ran for governor actually, but he came in third in that primary. And some people who may jump in. There was one or two state reps who jumped in. There was also some the
About
main
six
secret.
people that are kind of vying for the seat. So
Yeah,
we'll see where that process leads us. I want
yeah,
to think about the other Blumble. My whole thing is the president can't touch anything without it turning to shit. And that I'm
yeah.
referring to is the World Cup.
Well,
So
yeah. Well,
can I talk
everything.
about that for a second and that mess
Yeah.
up?
Oh, yeah.
Um, so I have to say, I was really happy with how we were handling the World Cup as people, people that we were introducing our culture. We were being good neighbors and good hosts and the guests. It was just a love fest of the world coming together. And then Donald Trump has to put his 2 cents in. And for those of you who aren't following the World Cup, the USA was playing Bosnia, and one of our leading goalies, person who scores a lot, this kid Balogun, had gotten a red card. And a red card in football or soccer is a penalty, and it's a severe penalty. And one of the punishments of this is you're not allowed to play in the next game, and it's not allowed to be appealed. So that's it, you know. So they went into the 16 the 16 group against Belgium, and Belgium thought and the US thought that they were playing without one of their lead scorers. And then Donald Trump made a phone call to his buddy who gave him his, you know, his trophy at FIFA, and they decided that they're going to give this kid, they're going to take away the red card and allow him to play against Belgium. And so what does that do? I mean, yes, this kid gets to play, but it sours the game. It's kind of like it just pissed everybody off, especially Belgium. And Belgium came in and beat the shit out of the United States. Now, Belgium
Mm.
is a great team, and the US, you know, I didn't expect them really to advance, but they were doing well at this point. And regardless, I was kind of hoping, and I heard someone else say this, and I agreed with them, so I'm going to say this. I was kind of hoping they would have an exit like Capo Verde did, or Mexico did, you know, like this kind of like, hey, we played a good series and we did our best, you know, bye-bye, and we still love you. But no, you know, Trump's got to come in and muddy the waters. And so I made a post where I had Chris Richards, who was like my namesake. He's like, you know, kneeling on the ground, and I just posted, you know, Trump ruins everything. And it just soured the whole experience, I believe,
Well,
for
yeah.
us in the World Cup. And if he could just stay out of it, it was work the World Cup was working so well without our government stepping in and making a mockery out of it. And you know,
Well, Donald Trump, and I was a little bit, I saw that post, I was a little bit more forceful. I said, everything he touches turns to shit. So, not just, the Americans get defeated after he puts his teeny tiny bruised thumb on the scale. That, not just that, but the only game that the Knicks lost in their playoffs was the one he attended after he made people come hours early to go through the ridiculous security screening process that the Secret Service has when a president is in town. Uh, and, it was basically a $10 million taxpayer funded nap for him
yeah.
that day because he was just falling asleep in the stands. And this is a larger pattern just with everything in Trump's life. I mean, his casinos turned to shit, his businesses turned to shit. He was never a successful businessman. That is a myth. That is a myth propagated by Mark Burnett and reality television. He played one on TV. He has never been successful. Everything he has done has been with other people's money. He has conned people with other people's money, and usually they're left holding the bag while he goes off to the next scheme. And
And he
so,
hasn't paid people with
no,
other people with his money. So, and speaking of paid, I was listening to the Daily. They were talking about the amount of money that his family's making. That was on This Week podcast, you know. And there was an interesting story about how his sons are making money. Um, they're getting into mineral mining. Is that the
yeah,
and what's happening is that oh God, I'm forgetting the name because I have chlorine in my head. His secretary,
Natalie Harp.
no,
Oh,
no, commerce.
oh, Howard Lutnick.
Yeah, Howard
Howard
Lutnick,
Howard Nutlick. That's what we affectionately
Nutlick,
call him. Yeah.
and how ha made a personal phone call um to Kazakhstan and put Donald Trump on the phone to secure certain deals for mining. There's a lot of mining to be done. And, you know, and who's getting a contract or a possible contract for that mining is a small, unheard company that his sons are a part of. And their claim is that, oh, they only have a minority stake in this um, company. But even so, because of that information, that it's a public stock, the stock goes up. They still make money off of the buying and selling of that stock. Um, so they're making so much money because and it's also Lutnick's kids as well, because Lutnick's kids are part of Cantor Fitzgerald, and they're the ones who are raising the capital. And
Yeah.
so, and they're able to do this because their parents are in the government who are making these phone calls to the other governments that are instrumental on whether these deals happen. That is unprecedented.
No,
So,
it's not. It's a total grift. And when we say that Donald Trump, when I said earlier that Donald Trump has never been a successful businessman, he's been a con man. Now he's conning all of us. Now he's
yeah,
conning the entire federal government. He is using the apparatus of the United States to enrich himself. Just in his crypto holdings alone, he made $2 billion more just in the crypto. And then with all of these little side deals, his businesses now are, delegates and foreign representatives are coming here and going to his hotels to stay there as a semi-bribe to him.
yeah.
And so, not to mention the ridiculous Epstein 2.0 island that Javanka wants to build in Albania, that the people
Hmm.
there are rising up against and protesting against. And so he's an actual billionaire now because he's stealing from us.
But the interesting thing that they were saying in the Daily is the fact that he's doing it this ter as opposed to he didn't really do stuff like this because he said he was being a good boy the first term and he never got any recognition for it.
Yeah, that's
So
what he told
now
Maggie
he's doing
Haberman.
it
Yeah.
now because yeah, because nobody cares. And if we're a country that nobody cares, he's going to keep doing it. So if Congress doesn't hold him accountable, regardless of party, and if we don't hold him accountable, because we don't care. I mean, I care. I, I don't like this side of our culture that condones cheating. Is like if you can get away with it, then it's okay. Like I notice that in school sometimes, like if you can get away with it, so be it. Oh, and our own president is showing us, is leading by example, that it's okay to cheat as long as nobody holds you accountable for it. And nobody is, so he's going to do it right
Well,
in public, right in pure.
yeah, he's always been a grifter, folks. I mean, the Attorney General of New York State prior to Letitia James, Barbara Underwood, uh, she filed a lawsuit because his children stole money from a children's cancer charity, and they had to give it back. There was also a charity for veterans, supposedly. It was also another slush fund. So they are always grifting. They are always on the hunt for, their take. They always want their vig. They
Yeah,
they always want a little bit off the top and more than a little bit off the top. Remember for years, oh, Hunter Biden and Burisma and Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation. That was pay dirt next to this.
yeah. Next
And
to
so
this,
to
they,
this. And so I never want to hear that again about Hunter Biden and Burisma and this and that because that was nothing.
yeah, because what's happening now is
Not to mention his plane that he
it's
can't go on because that was given to him by Qatar because it's a
oh, they have to.
security risk. I
Yeah,
mean,
because yeah, they transferred him. He got on a different plane in Turkey, he went there, and then they got because they have to fix it because there's all these security risks. And once again, how much money is that going to cost the American taxpayer to do that? Um, I yeah, just so I was listening to that on the daily, and I could not believe that. The other thing I was listening to is this: we have another ICE shooting, someone else, and I was listening to the president of Mexico, and the thing I liked about what she said is she's going to hold our country accountable because she's taking it as you killed one of our Mexican nationals, and she's going to file suit. um, Mexico is going to hold the United States accountable for their actions. And
well,
we had, someone who was taken into ICE custody and murdered. Another person was murdered by ICE officials. Um, his name was Lorenzo Salgado Arujo. I'm sorry if I mispronounce his name. He was 52 years old. He'd been in this country for, I think, 25 years. He put three kids through college. Dead. Go
And
ahead.
this was, yeah, and this just to provide some context, this was another traffic stop. So this was very much like the Renee Good situation and the Alex Preddy situation. This was another traffic stop, although we don't have video of the actual shooting the way we do with Renee Good and Alex Preddy. And so this is really serious. We've been saying for months on this podcast that ICE needs to be abolished. There is no fixing an organization like that. It is one that is deputized for the specific purpose of instilling fear and committing violence and forcibly removing people. Some of which, we were told would only be criminals, but clearly that's not been the case because they are launching a much more expansive program, and it's cost people their lives. And we should watch how this is reported by certain media outlets because let's not forget, Scott Pelley from 60 Minutes and CBS
Mhm.
made the point to say that Barry Weiss, that mistress of propaganda, that self-loathing that self-loathing MAGA lesbian, she wanted uh, them, meaning at CBS News, to create the narrative that Renee Good was running towards that officer with her car. And that wasn't what happened. And anybody who has watched the video can clearly see that was not what happened. And so my fear is that without that clear evidence, the way that we had in those other two cases, that uh, propagandists like Barry Weiss and CBS and Fox News and the right-wing commentators, they will fill the void with bullshit and misinformation to try and create a sense that this was justified. And
Well,
so,
that's why I'm glad to hear that the president of Mexico is stepping in,
yeah.
and saying, you hurt one of our nationals. We're going to investigate this and we're going to hold ICE accountable. And what's interesting, I saw it with Cuba, what's going on. There was a meeting of the uh, you I think it was NATO. There was a meeting where Cuba had marked where they confronted um the NATO president, not the NATO president, the UN ambassador of the US, I believe. And um, the Cuban government cut, point of reference and had said to him, he's like, this is a lie. You've cut off our gas and oil. And when you talk about us in regards to what our human rights, that he claims about all the people they've killed under ICE, and then he put a picture up of Renee Good and held them accountable and said, "You hold yourself in the mirror, United States, and look what you're actually doing in your own country before you run and start talking about us to legitimize what you're doing to our country." So good for them. So good for them, and I really hope the world puts pressure on the U.S. to you know, release this strangle on Cuba.
Well, absolutely. And also too, I hope that if and when the Democrats take back power in November, that come the new Congress, that there are hearings about what is happening in ICE facilities like Delaney Hall, and CCOT for that matter.
Yeah,
I'm hoping that there are public hearings, much in the style of the January 6th style hearings, where people can display exhibits, we can hear from witnesses, we so we know what actually happened, and we don't have to rely on propagandists like Barry
because we
Weiss
have,
and
I mean,
PBS.
in smaller circles, we have heard accountability from people who have been detained and what it's been like. And it should be voiced in Congress on a more national platform and documented about some of what people have gone through. And definitely, I'm looking at the time because unfortunately, I only have so much time today. Um, what else do we want to discuss before we wrap it up here?
Well, I think that was, all that was on our
We
agenda.
have
I would,
Iran. We want to talk about Iran a little bit, or
well, the war is on, the war is off. What else is, like,
he's pissed at them now. He's like, "Oh, the ceasefire's over." So
well, ceasefire's over, and actually, Hunter Biden had the best tweet about this. He said, "I'm going to nominate President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize because he has started and ended this war more times than anybody else. So, I am agree I am in agreement with that. That clearly that memorandum of understanding that they signed a few weeks ago isn't worth the paper it's printed on,
Well,
and clearly this is going to continue and it's going to drive up costs for Americans.
did you hear? I think this is what I've been listening to. I've been listening to the Daily all week, so I'm thinking my reference. So something about in regards to the talks with Iranians is that like Vance was having like lower level meetings, like in regards to like he shouldn't even be doing that. Like there was a point reference, and the point made sense. They were like, Vance should not be meeting with lower level dignitaries on this. They should have like they didn't have any preliminary like people prior. They had Vance there for like and not meeting with his counter,
Yeah,
um
not as
the
high up, not as high up.
right. So we've been flubbering so this is why it's all back and forth.
Well,
And he's pissed at Spain. Oh, that was it. It was at the NATO thing. He's like, I want to cut trades with Spain. And Spain's like, oh, go ahead,
yeah.
Spain's just like,
What does,
whatever.
what does it matter? I mean, well, and as it relates to JD Vance, him and his eyeliner, I think that Trump and everybody around him knows that JD Vance is the most unlikable, charismaless person in the administration, and I think the thought of him being the standard bearer in 28 terrifies them
Yeah.
because he lands, he doesn't land very well with most people because he's so charmless. And so I think he's doing these things purposely knowing he's going to face plant so that any star he has in 2028 plummets. And so I think
Well,
that's
he's
what's
having
really
him,
happening.
do not even talk with higher level officials, like I
Yeah.
could see someone like his son-in-law going in and doing the preliminary talks, but not
Yeah.
JD Vance. He's the vice president. I don't get that. So, and
Well,
that
his son-in-law, just to be clear, his son-in-law has zero qualification to be doing this either. But again, they want their VIG. They
yeah,
want
well,
their
they're
VIG.
getting it. They're
You
getting
know,
their Vic, they as they're there, they're making their deals. And the people were like, my 401 is doing well. For how long? For how
well,
long?
it's
You
doing
know,
well because of, or, on the days where it is doing well, I would argue it's doing well because of market manipulation on
right.
things like the Iran war. Because all week, oh, we're engaging in peace talks. Then the weekend, oh, it's over. We're going to fight again, and
and
then
then and
then
the
it goes
market
down.
goes down.
And then,
And
oh, we have an agreement on Monday. It comes up miraculously, and
and
so
who and who
it's
gets
market
to play in
manipulation.
that market is his
Mhm.
family. And
Mhm.
if you look at how much money a lot of money they've made is in crypto, it's because they've been an insider. A lot of people who bought the Donald Trump crypto, they're out of money. But Donald Trump made a lot of money on those crypto coins. So it's a lot with, market manipulation. And if you sit around and you play the market and day trade, yeah, you could probably make a lot of money going up and down and up and down, but that's not stability, and that's not how you build an economy. That's how you make some money.
Well,
And
that's
not
and that's
everybody is sitting in front of a computer on a daily basis. A lot of people put their money in a 401 and they go to work, and they
Mhm.
go to work 9 to 5, and they think that when they retire, their 401 is going to give them some return. They're not sitting at a desk day trading. That's not how you build a
And
strong economy.
no, you built a strong economy by investing in the most valuable resource we have, and that's the people. That's our workers. And you do that by increasing labor standards. You do that by encouraging unionization. You do that by increasing wages and increasing incentives for people to get these good jobs, like actually having time to go on vacation and good health benefits. You need all of those things. And so, but they don't want to do that. They want an economy that is purely service-based, that has obedient workers. George Carlin used to say that. They want obedient workers, and that is it. It doesn't matter whether, for all his talk about immigration, I think if if it represented cheap labor, he would do it. And
Yeah.
then we've seen certain exemptions to his immigration policy for big agriculture and the farms. And so really this is just all about the grift. It's rage bait, it's grift, it is a con, all of it. And so we have to really call it out. We have to really show up in November, and we have to show up in November in a way that is too big to rig, because they will try.
And they are trying. I heard something, I haven't had a chance to read it, but I read very recently, like about 5 minutes before we went on, there was a breaking news, something, they Trump fired some aspect of voting, people who handle some sort of voting. I don't have
They
my phone
assist,
on me.
they assist the states. It's an election commission. It's a federal
Yeah,
agency. And
so they got rid
truthfully,
of that. So,
yeah,
we learn a little bit more about that. We're going to see what that's all about. But
yeah,
folks, if you come out in numbers, numbers don't lie. So
no,
just make sure you do not sit home this November. And I
absolutely.
can't sit here much longer because it's my godfather's birthday and we're taking him to dinner. So I
Well,
have,
on that note,
and it's Florida, so we eat early here.
this is the Left and Forgotten Borough podcast. I'm Andrew Savage.
And I'm Nancy Richards. We'll see you soon.